Assalamu alaikum. That is, may God's peace be upon you. Welcome back to the power of educating our own. For those of you who were with us last Sunday, that was our inaugural show, where we have discussions about education, the power of us educating our own. And by us, I'm talking Muslims, I'm talking African American, I'm talking taking the responsibility back into our own hands to educate our children so that they will have the best production possible. And so for those of you who have come back to join the broadcast and to watch the show, we thank you so much for the support. As a result of last week's show, we had some people call and connect with us and want to be a part of the Claire Muhammad Schools Network, which is a network of Claire Muhammad schools across the country and in Bermuda who work together to support each other and to push forward the mission of Sister Claire Muhammad. And while all those schools don't bear the name Claire Muhammad School, they absolutely bear the mission and the purpose behind why those schools were developed in the first place. And so this evening, we will go into our second show, and I'm so happy to be here. And I do have co-hosts, so for those of you who were with us last week, you did see my co-host, Sister Karen Shaka and Dr. Patricia Salahuddin. They are traveling right now for education purposes, and so we ask Allah to give them traveling mercies, but they will be back with us next week. But today we have a wonderful treat. For those of you who know the history of the school system in the community, I'm sure that the name Imam Kadir Abdul Sabur rings a bell for you. And so today I have him and his beautiful wife, Sister Beverly, and we will be having a conversation about education and its longevity and all the rich history that comes along with the work from my guests this evening. And so I'm going to bring them in so that you all get a chance to start the conversation. Assalamu alaikum. So it's so good. I'm doing well. And so it's so good to have you all with us today. I'm looking forward to the conversation that we will have. I know that there's so much that you all have done in this community as it relates to education that I can't even begin to scratch the surface of saying that I know. But anytime that I hear your names, I always get a response of how impactful the work that you have done has been. And so for our viewers and our audience who don't know or who even do know you, tell us who you are and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, assalamu alaikum. I was going to let my wife speak first, but she told me to go ahead. I don't know why that is. Okay, my name is Kadir Abdul, and I've been a member of this community since 1972, I think. Yeah, about 1972. And Sister Betty came right behind me in 1973, I think. Okay. And I was when I went to the worst high school in the city of Philadelphia. And Sister Beverly went to the best high school in the city of Philadelphia. But we were neighbors. We lived on the same street. I used to do papers to the house when I was.
The history of the school system in the community. I'm sure that the name Imam Kadir Abdul Sabur rings a bell for you. And so today I have him and his beautiful wife, Sister Beverly, and we will be having a conversation about education and its longevity and all the rich history that comes along with the work from my guests this evening. And so I'm going to bring them in so that you all get a chance to start the conversation. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
So it's
How are
so
you this
good to
evening?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. And so it's so good to have you all with us today. I'm looking forward to the conversation that we will have. I know that there is so much that you all have done in this community as it relates to education that I can't even begin to scratch the surface of saying that I know. But anytime that I hear your names, um, I always get a response of how impactful the work that you have done has been. And so, for our viewers and our audience who don't know or who even do know you, tell us who you are and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum. I was gonna let my wife speak first, but she told me to go ahead. I don't know why that is. Okay, my name is Kadir Abdul, and I've been a member of this community since 1972, I think. Yeah, about 1972. Um, and Sister Belly came in right behind me in 1973, I think. I might have those. Yeah. Okay. And I was you know, I s- mm, when I went to the worst high school in the city of Philadelphia. And Sister Beverly went to the best high school in the city of Philadelphia. But we were neighbors. We lived on the same street. I used to deliver papers to her house when I was 10 years old. So we've known each other for a very, very long time. And so when I got out of the Marine Corps, I wanted to go back to college, go back to school. And so I finished, graduated, finally graduated, and went on and started teaching at that time, the University of Islam. I was a math teacher there in Philadelphia. And I just kept it up and kept on going up and finally finished graduate temple and kept on teaching and taught at community college in Philadelphia. And then I was a computer systems engineer for about 25 years, but I kept teaching on the side, taught mathematics, and then I started teaching computer science. I taught here in Virginia at down in Richmond Public School, but also taught at John Tyler Community College. So I've been teaching. I've been doing computer engineering and teaching for most of my life, but I've always stayed with uh, our community. And great thing about is that the education system that Cloud Muhammad schools offer is second to none. It's far better than anything that one can imagine. There are a lot of reasons for that. I imagine doing this program we'll talk about some. So that was how a little bit about me, my background. So finally I was put in the computer system here at a local college in Harvard, Virginia. And this was at the time when they were just trying to get people of color into higher education. So they offered an opportunity for me to go back to the graduate school. So I went to University of Virginia. I finally graduated with my doctorate of philosophy and doctor of philosophy, and my focus was Islamic schools in North America. So I wrote my PhD dissertation on ghetto response to a Muslim response to a ghetto school. I used the Muhammad School of Queens, New York, when I studied the school and wrote my PhD dissertation on that. So that's kind of how we are. And then, the years we moved from Philadelphia to uh, Virginia, and with Master Bilal, we had a little school. Sister Belly was the only teacher at the school, and then that grew into Clan Muhammad Boarding School. We tried to start the college, Muslim Teachers College in Randolph, Virginia, and we had worked with great people on that effort. Um, Dr. James Rashid and Imam Ezekiel Pasha from New York and many others at that time was Imam Ali Rashid in New York and many, many other people. help with that. And that went on for a while. Then we tried to start here in Virginia. We had these three schools, two schools basically. The immigrant community had a Islamic school, and then the three basically. What we were trying to do, and then there was the immigrant community had a school, and then there was the African American Muslims who were not a part of our association. They had a school. And I wanted to, our boys were losing our boys so fast. I wanted to try to build a boys' school. So I tried to talk to each one of them and didn't do any good. So I just made in my mind I was going to work with two major groups because RF had stopped at that time, and I was working with two major groups to try to understand where their heads were at. So I taught mathematics at the African American, it was called the Homeschool Academy. And then I also was invited to be on the board of the immigrant community, which was called ICRA Academy. So I had an opportunity to work with all of them. And so then we wanted to form a school that really addressed the needs of educated Muslim education in Richmond. And so we formed the Tawhid Prep School. And the way I did it, we pulled people from all the communities, invited everybody to be a part of it, the immigrant to be a part of it, African Americans to be a part of it. This community was not community in our association, but we invited everybody to be a part of it. And we had meetings. We did this for about a year. We'd have workshops and stuff like that for a year.
Okay, so we're frozen, but I don't know if that's me or our guest. So we'll see if it comes back in. But as you all can tell, there's a rich, rich, rich history connected to Imam Kadir and Sister Beverly, and I can begin to call it. But hopefully they're able to come back in. We'll pull them out and see if they can come back on. Okay, so then it was them. It wasn't me. But so far we are hearing about their journey in the world of education in the African American Islamic community. And I heard him mention the boarding school, which I really want to know more about. My husband actually happens to be a graduate of that school, and then he talked about the Teachers College, which I'm excited to hear them take us through the journey on. But the other thing is, education is one of those things where you're either like really, really, really into it, or you're kind of, it appears that you're just kind of comfortable with someone else doing it for you. And it sounds like, and even from what I've seen from Imam Kadir and Sister Beverly, they're on the end of like really being into it and being change makers and really wanting to be on the side of like creating the something new and the something innovative for the purposes of um, keeping. Now they're messaging me now, so we'll try to get them back in. She says they lost video and audio. Let's see if we can help them. Um, let's see. Let me just send them a quick message. Okay, so they're having some weather issues on their end. So I'm gonna try to get them back in here. Okay, let's just see if that works. Because then we'll just we'll just do the best we can to have a conversation, and hopefully they're able to come back in, and we don't have to bring them back another time. But yeah, education is this thing that you either are on that end of building it from the ground up and being innovative with it, or you're depending on others to do it for you. And we know as Muslims that it's our responsibility to make sure that our children are cultivated in the best manner so that they are produced in the best mold, right? And you ask yourself, well, how do I do that? Everyone's not going to be an Imam Kadir and Sister Beverly, and we know that, right? But as parents and as grandparents, what do we do? um, how do we go about educating our children in 2024 when it's so easy to put your child in a public school that's right down the street and doesn't cost any money, or a charter school with a similar format, right? How do you choose that, or do you choose a Clara Muhammad school? And perhaps is there even a school in your vicinity for you to have that choice? Many people who talk about the rich history of the Clara Muhammad school system, often they're talking about their experiences from um, from years past, right, where we did have more schools thriving and greater options for our children to go to these schools. And now we know that that isn't as vast as it used to be, right? We do have um, a wonderful selection of schools that are still in the system. Maybe they're not all full-time schools. Some are probably weekend, or we say strong end schools, right? And we do have some online formats. So for instance, if we're able to get Imam Kadir and Sister Beverly back in, they're founders of an online school called New Africa Ummah Online. And so all of this just begs the question as to, what our responsibility is as it relates to education of our children. If what are our options and what works for us as families, right? As a mom, I know that that's, as a Muslim mom, right? As a Ummi, um, that's something that you think about when your children are young, and circumstances bring you to whatever decision it is that you make. My children have had the experience of being in a charter school, um, one of my daughters in a public school, and then they've also had Clara Muhammad School. And so they've even seen the difference in experiences as it relates to. Okay, they're still trying to come in, so I'm gonna keep talking because inshallah they will be back in with us. Let me just send them a quick message. Yeah, so hopefully they'll be back in with us. But the children even notice a difference in the experience in both in being in those different environments. I remember my oldest daughter, when she first went to high school and she came right from Clara Muhammad School, one of the things she said was, and I've heard a couple of people tell me this as it related to their children, is that she said, I don't understand why these children just can't sit down and learn. And it was because she had come from an environment that was it was different, the structure different, right? We didn't have all of the things that they've experienced, that she was experiencing in the new environment. We didn't have that at the Clara Muhammad School. And so while we wait for Dr. Kadir and Sister Beverly to come back in, we were having some technical difficulties getting on AM 360. We're now on AM 360. And so I want to welcome all of those who are listening in from AM 360. And for our viewers on Facebook and YouTube, go ahead and put in the chat and tell us where you're calling from or where you're viewing from. And I have Dr. Kadia and Sister Beverly back. Assalamu alaikum. You're back.
We
Okay.
live way out in the country, and when it starts raining, we lose our internet. So that's what happened.
Not
I
a
had to
problem.
switch
Not
to
a
our slower
problem.
internet out here.
No problem. I was
So
just
I was
yap until you got back.
okay. So we was trying to. You asked us a little background, so we got now how far we gotten. Well, anyway, to kind of sum it up, we've been working with some schools in Islamic education for over 40 years, and I think it's a great thing that a good reason. I mean, it's a good effort, and there's a couple of things that we need to do in the future and in time, probably before the end of the show, we'll share some of those. So, Sister Beverly, you want to share some of your experience?
Oh, okay. Okay, my experience was somewhat different. We became Muslim. We accepted Islam in Rochester, New York in 1972. And we returned to Philadelphia, our home city, and we started attending the mosque at Susquehanna Avenue. And we had a little boy, Sekou, who was born in 71, and he was a precocious child, and we wanted to get him started on the right path. So we took him to at that time, it was still the temple. Okay, that's how far that was. It was still the temple, and we had a University of Islam, and my background is in education also. My first degree was in secondary education, Romance languages, Spanish and Portuguese. And I had great hopes of being an interpreter at the UN, but that was beyond where I could get. But anyway, so Sekou started in the 4-year-old class at the University of Islam, and I volunteered naturally as a parent helper in the classroom. So I had a chance to see how things were going and learn more about Islam myself as they taught the little ones. And we were there when the change came, and it was very inspiring when our community in Philadelphia had a chance to buy an old Catholic school. And so we moved from the different places we had school in North Philly to the West Philadelphia, a different neighborhood, and all of us in one building. It was really, really heartwarming, and it strengthened all of our iman because we had a real school by that time. And I had an opportunity to help also in the classroom there. And eventually, after I had enough babies, I was able to actually work as a teacher at the school. And we did a lot of really great things. It's amazing how getting a school started brings the community together. And we could see that in that effort back then. And people came from all around to help. And everybody in the neighborhood and beyond were proud that the Muslims had a school. And we did some really great things. And well, we moved to Virginia, and with two little girls, son and two little girls. And when we got to Virginia, they had a school there here in Richmond, but we came after the energy kind of died in the transition. So I said, well, I got to have my little girl, my littlest one, Inez, got to have a Islamic school for her. So I said, well, I'll just do one. So uh, I got the permission, and I got some assistance from some of the seniors who saw that vision. Some of the parents were a little slow about doing that, but uh, I was able to get a preschool started. And we started with just a few families in the masjid. And then people from outside our community saw an interest, and they started to come, and they would volunteer to help with whatever we needed. And so we had that network of people from the community as well as within the UMA. And it was a really good experience. It was really good. And I've seen some of those little ones who are now almost 50. And
Wow.
sometimes I'll see them and their parents will say, "Oh, Sister Beverly, my child learned so much from you." Da, 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 da. And a lot of them weren't Muslim, but it meant a lot to have Islam as the base. And the parents appreciated it. Even if they didn't accept all of what we were about, they knew it was the best thing for their children. And it was a very rewarding experience. So
Yeah. And so there are
that's
so
kind of the
many
background.
things. Yes, there are so many things that the both of you have
Mhm.
shared that I could ask a million questions at this point. One of the things I do want to know is what was teaching like in those early years? Was it were the demand? Do you think that the demands were different? I know you talked about the spirit of the community just being like a high spirit and one of cooperation and collaboration. But what was the demand or the command for education back then?
Okay.
Well, there was a common characteristic between those early schools that we had and the segregated schools that were part of our American history. Because in the segregated schools, the African American teachers had a genuine, sincere desire to educate their youngsters, even though they themselves not have been adequately prepared. So, in reading some of the literature, he discovered that the African Americans who could read, they would teach the former slaves to read. Sometimes it would be under a palm tree or deep in the woods, and nobody was too old to learn, nobody was too young to learn. And the teachers was concerned about educating the whole community, educating the community. And that carried on right into the development of the segregated schools. The teachers, they knew that they were preparing the youngsters for a future that they couldn't see. So they were really into it. They really wanted to give the students something that would last and the strengthen them against the racial prejudice that they faced. And the same thing was true in our early Muslim schools because the teachers we had, then many of them weren't college graduates. In fact, most of them hadn't been college graduates, but they were parents and they were sincere people who wanted to provide their children with the best and the best opportunity, the best chance to move forward and to to be representative of our ethnic group and not depend on those outside of us. And that was a common thread. So that common characteristic was present in both those settings. And I think that's something that we're going to have moving forward. We have to make sure that we have teachers who have that genuine sincerity, genuine desire to bring the children to help them to develop to their fullest potential. Is that right?
And
Yeah, no, I
back in
love
those days too,
good.
yeah, because there were several teachers who had not finished college. There was a real strong emphasis on getting the ABCs, the three, reading, writing, arithmetic. So we had a lot of pressure to make sure the kids got what they needed. They, in addition to being Muslim and behavior, but there was a lot of emphasis on academics, and we had to struggle. Uh, we had to, back in those days, we used disposable workbooks.
Yeah.
And that was a challenge. That was a real challenge. And because I was already a trained teacher, it was kind of awkward for me to just stick to following that book, right along, right along, right along. But we have to do what you have to do. If the principal said that's what you're going to use, that's what we use. But we had some leeway, a little. We had some, and we were able to get some things done. And those were the early days of us learning of the Quran. And we hadn't quite got to Hadith yet, but we were learning Quran and learning how to pray. and learned a little bit of the history of our prophet, peace be upon him, just a little. Okay, but really, a lot of the emphasis was on getting academics and keeping the behavior in an Islamic form, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
it makes complete sense. And it sounds like there were many successes and some challenges in there too. One of the things that stands out from me for me in the work that you all have done over the years is that, you know, it anytime I hear you all speak, you all come across to me as trailblazers, right? It was just like, well, there's no Islamic school for my daughter. Well, we got to create one. Let's just make it. And I think that that's so inspiring because, you know, we don't always see those things modeled for us um, in present day. There was something that, Sister Beverly, that you had said earlier about the fact that not all of the children in the school were Muslim children, but that their families appreciated them having that Islamic foundation in their education. Talk to us a little bit about that, because I know one of the things that we brought up in last week's show was the emphasis that the Clar Muhammad School is for everyone. And even in this broadcast, our prayer and our hope is that uh, those who listen and those who view in will understand that this school system is for the benefit of all. So talk to us a little bit about how that worked. There were students in the school who weren't even Muslim.
The especially after we moved to Virginia and we started a real school, real Clara Muhammad school, and it was from pre-K to 12. And we had, oh my gosh, I taught the third through fifth grade, and I had 20 students, and only three of them were Muslim. The other 20 were, of the 17 were children from the neighborhood and
Wow.
children who were friends of or cousins of the three that were there, right? But it was just everybody wanted to learn. Everybody had the same idea. When they came to school, we were supposed to do, you know, we were learning about prayer. We were starting to learn Arabic. Um, we were learning about Muslim behavior for young children, and and about being a neighbor to each other. And it was a very good experience. And we got so that even the non-Muslim parents were recruiting other non-Muslim parents to bring their children, and it was good. It was good, and we had a lot of good conversations for parent um, when having parent meetings. Uh, we could talk frankly about things and our expectations and what their expectations were, and it was, oh yes, whatever you need to do, just about go, whatever you need to do. I said, well, wait, I can't do it like I do my own children, but whatever you need to do. but but it's good. People realize their sincerity, you know, and the practical things, and we tried to do a lot of things that engage the children's imagination and their appreciation of Allah and the universe. Well, I had a lot of plants and all kinds of things that we studied as part of our science, as well as our Islamic studies and math, and all of those things were all tied together in our the way we did our classes. It was, and you'll see some of the things that I wrote, some of the lessons that I wrote, the units show you the interrelatedness, the tawheed of all things. And so we had a lot of that. And that awakens the spirit, even in the parents' minds, that this is a good thing. Wow, I never thought about that. And so it was good. It was really good. I had to do a lot of uh, sometimes like personal counseling. Sometimes parents, younger parents, would have questions, and I have to answer some of those questions or address some of those things. But it was good. It was really good. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah,
So
that's great. That's
that's
great. And so for those, I didn't hear the last piece.
no, it's okay.
Oh, okay.
It's all right.
Okay.
It's
So
not.
for those of you, for
Yeah.
those of you who are just tuning in or just watching us on social media, this is the power of educating our own. Our guests today are Imam Kadir Abdul Sabur and Sister Beverly Abdul Sabur. And we are discussing all things education, and we've got some good information on their history in this community as it relates to education. And I want to talk at this point about um, some of the schools that you all were able to create. I know, Dr. Kadir, you mentioned them earlier. You talked about the boarding school and you talked about the teacher college. And I know that you both are founders, I believe, of New Africa Ummah Online. So talk to us about those schools and like what it took to even get them started.
Okay, well, the first one I guess would have been Sister Beverly's preschool program. That was in Richmond. And at the time, I was not the imam, and education wasn't looked on very highly. So we had plenty of challenges then. Then when I became the imam in Richmond, then we just went all out and established the Claire Muhammad School in Richmond. Um, and but the problem there was that the building needed some serious repairs, and we couldn't get the community to buy into supporting the school because everybody had their own idea about how money should be spent, and they couldn't see the value of education, and that's kind of a problem that we have today. Many Muslims don't see the value of education, particularly African American Muslims, because it hasn't education in America hasn't served us as a people. There are exceptions, but as a people, generally speaking, education hasn't served us. So therefore, we don't have a high regard for education. We don't see the real power, the empowering of the individual through education. So, it was true at that time too. So what happened was that we just kept on plugging away until the city finally got to the point where we couldn't operate unless we were able to make certain revisions to the building. So we couldn't get those done. We couldn't get support for that. So we looked around the city for other places, other locations to relocate the school, but none of those plans fell through. So eventually, we were forced to close the school because we couldn't keep up with we couldn't satisfy the requirements. So from there, we said, well, we worked with some other people and said, well, let's start. We still had this need to do something for our boys, so we started Claremont Boarding School. And your husband was a student at that school, and went around and traveled around the country with Imam Zika Pasha and Dr. James Rashid and some others, and began raising money to buy a piece of land down here in Virginia, Randolph, Virginia, and we purchased the land, and that site was going to be the Muslim Teachers College. And the boarding school was supposed to be a preparatory school for the style college students. The college students who learned about teaching would be able to teach in the boarding school. You get classroom experience right at the time you're taking education. That was the whole plan. Um, as the thing would have it, as time passed, we never had enough money to work. Uh, we couldn't get enough operating money. We couldn't pay the best quality teachers. So eventually, that effort was forced to die because we didn't have the kind of support that we needed. We tried to get support for the school to continue growing, but we weren't able to. But some of the students have done very well. That they left the boarding school and they've gone and done great things. Your husband's example and many other examples. The boys have gone on to this was all boys boarding school. Who've gone on and done great things, done very well. Uh, and then that after that effort petered out. We wanted to do another one, So we came back to Richmond. I was trying to work with the existing schools here in Richmond area, and I tried to work with them. I taught at one and was on the board at another, and tried to get them to reform Towee Prep School. And this was a day school. We started with about 8 students, and after before I was stepped back from the director, we had I think about close to 40 or 50 students, but we'd already earned accreditation. This was eight through 12, grades 8 through 12, and we'd earned national accreditation. We had been accredited. We were accredited, and that school eventually merged. When I stepped back from the directorship, and allowed some others to take over and move it forward. They moved the school, merged the school into the New Medina, Medina School. And then we wanted to do an online school. It seemed to me that online was the way of the future at that time. This was in mid 90s, I think it was. Um, Seemed like to me it was the way of the future, and nobody was addressing it. So we did the online school for Towee Prep School. And that school is still going on, still in existence. So those are the early efforts of the schools that we worked with, and the couple of things stand out in terms of prep and study school. Number one is that you have to have the person who's kind of spearheading this to a small group of people are like the group leaders, 3 or 4 people, like the three of you. You know, you all have to share the vision and see the vision. I'm talking about you, Madam Q, and Dr. Patricia. They have to see the vision and share the vision and see the vision 15, 20 years down the road. And you got to have behind you people who push you and encourage you to do that, you know, and push. Then they have the experience to see the kind of pitfalls that you're going to run into, and try to help with those pitfalls. And one thing that's always a problem for us is money. We never have enough money to do the schools. Now, what's happening over the years is that we got the idea that we should be asking the government to give us money, and that's never going to happen. You're never going to have control of your own schools if somebody else is taking is giving you the money. They're backing, they're financing. If they're financing, you got to do what they say. That's just the way it is. Don't make no difference who it is, whether the money's coming from locally or abroad. If they're paying the bills, then they're going to dictate what goes on the school. And we just can't seem to get that through our head as a community of people. You know, we got to do this ourselves. In that regard, that's an area that those of us who've been around for a while, see that you guys are going to need. So one of the things that we're trying to do is we're trying to start a business here in Virginia so that we can share some of the proceeds to the school. And we want to do that as a model for other businesses to do the same thing. Businesses get to start their businesses and then make consistent monthly donations to, in this case, the CMS network, because the CMS network is a very viable um, route. It's going to be a monumental establishment institution for Claremont School. Great work has already been done by Imam Adam Bayan, his family. They've been doing monumental work in fundraising, and they just need help in another area. So we're talking to businessmen now. One of them suggested, the meeting was online Wednesday night. One of them suggested that every Muslim in our community, in our association, just donate $5 a month. Just send $5 a month to CMS Network and just let it grow. Just let it grow. And I'm sure the three of you all will decide that you got to put some order to that. So you'll find some people who know how to pull money together and manage it, make sure it goes in the right direction. And we just try to get it in your coffers, and then you make it. So those are the two areas that in starting the school. Number one, you got to have people who really want to do and see the vision, and number two is that you have to have the finance. And the most important item is that you have to absolutely focus on the Quran. You can't have anybody coming in there just because they've been overseas and studied and they can recite Surah Al-Fatiha or the Surah Al-Nas in perfect tajweed and don't understand what they're reciting. They're not the ones to be teaching our students. Our students have to learn the language of the Quran. They have to understand the meaning of the Quran. They have to get it so that the Quran touches their heart and their spirit. And that's what happened in the old schools before integration. The teachers would touch the children's heart and soul and their spirit. And that's what happened when we was in the old nation of Islam. When we were isolated ourselves, the teachers could talk to the students and touch their heart and their spirit. That's why the Nation of Islam was so important. And that's what happened in the early days of Claire Muhammad School. But then as we got further and further away from that, and we thought that we were somebody other than who we were, we've forgotten all our connection, our roots. Now we want to identify with somebody else, but that's not it. We have to go back to the Quran. We've got to bring the Quran alive in our school. So those are the things that we've learned over the past couple months in Islamic education.
Almost 50 years in months.
Sister Melody, just thoughts.
Yeah.
Did you want to add something,
As
Sister
we
Beverly?
develop our, I was going to say, and to make the education meaningful to the children, okay, make everything tie into something that they can see that will help them later, but they can see a little bit of it even as young people. I remember when my husband was doing his writing his dissertation, and he was doing his research work up in Queens, New York. And the imam there was Imam Bakruddin. He was an amazing, amazing person. Mm-hmm. And he had a long career in the nation before the transition. He was very insightful. And he used to say, you know something? One of the things that really helped our community back in the day is the teachers, the school taught the parents as well as the children. Right. They have to keep that in mind. You're teaching the parents through the children. You're teaching the children, but keep in mind that the parents are also students of ours. And that's how we build a strong foundation and a network of believers and supporters. And I always remember that and try to keep parents and community people connected to what we were doing. That's many different things that we've done. But that's something that may Allah bless Imam Bakruddin, inshallah.
Inshallah, I mean, yeah. And so there are so many things that you all have just touched on. Imam Kadir gave us some like, you know, points to establishing institution. You know, keep Quran first, have vision, and you definitely need some money. Right. But those were some key things to share, right? Because we do kind of struggle with the establishment of institution that's sustainable, right? But then the other thing that I heard you all say is that it's the key, I guess, to this whole education thing, is particularly in the classroom, is to touch the hearts and the spirit of the children. And I'm definitely gonna walk away from tonight having that resonate in my mind and see what that then develops into, because it appears that that's the ingredient, that's the secret ingredient that we are missing in school in general, right? But then when we talk about our school system, that's something that maybe we need to be reminded of, is that our goal is to be able to touch the hearts and the spirit of those children. Because if we think about it, as parents and grandparents, just older adults in the vicinity of young children, we always want them to grow up and be productive, and we want that seed to grow into this like flourishing plant or flourishing flower. And sometimes we see the end goal, but we don't necessarily consider, like, how do I get this child who's just a baby to the point where they are who it is that I want for them, or that Allah wants for them, and all of that stuff like in between. It doesn't appear that we plan for, or we have a real sense of, I need to cultivate this. And so I'm curious to know from you all, like, what advice would you give, or what do you think our listeners need to know as it relates to producing or cultivating our children into being the best that they can be, considering that, we're the ones responsible for that. And then we'll see if our listening audience has some questions before we dial this down. So what would you tell our listeners and our viewers about what I guess my question is, what could they do, or what, I guess, charge would you give them as it relates to taking the responsibility to cultivate children?
One thing that stands out in my mind is reducing the distractions. The children today are distracted by everything: the cell phone, the media, TVs, the styles, wearing their pants low, rings to their ears and nose, eyes, all kinds of crazy. They're just they're just distracted from everything. So the one thing that I would encourage parents to do is understand that they're distracted and try to eliminate those distractions. Now, there's a verse in the Quran, Surah Hadid, the iron, verse iron. I think it's verse 58. I'm not sure. It talks about the 4 stages of human development. And if you, when you're reading that ayat and thinking about it, Allah actually explains the 4 stages of in the life of the individual, and they actually fall and coincide with approximate ages from birth to 10 years old, 10 to 20 years old, 20 to 30 years old, and 30 to 40 years old. The verse of Quran actually corresponds to those periods of human development. On the early stages where the youngsters are in the playing with toys and this, that, and the other, that's when you have to focus the children, understand that they have to play. So you have to create environments so that the distractions are contrived, so to speak. The things that get their attention are things that are wholesome. You have to understand what they like to do at the time. So, and between 10 and 20 years old, you have to understand that that's when the boys are going to show off and the girls are going to be in front of the mirrors, And you have to understand those things. So you have to plan around that. What we used to do at the Kelly Prep School, which we were talking middle school, so we had students between the 10 and 20 years old, 10, 11, 12, 13. We would have skating parties because we rent a skating rink, have a skating party, have a Muslim come in, a Muslim DJ come in and play nasheed. These are Muslim rappers like
the
Native Gene and some others. There are a bunch of them out there now. These are Muslims that sing, and the songs are clean and wholesome. And the children will come in and skate. We had several of them. Or bowling. So what you have to do is you have to create distractions that are wholesome distractions. Don't leave them to their own devices, because they'll get on the Facebook, the world, or TikTok, anybody, and do all kinds of crazy stuff. You have to create environments that channels their energies. So you have to think about knowing the Quran tells you what to expect, what they're going to be like at age. So you know what they're going to expect. So you have to create environments so that they can channel those energies so that they're receptive to the creation.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I agree wholeheartedly, because there's so much out here, even for us adults. There's so much out here that could grab you, and so we have a few minutes left, and so if for those of you who are listening to us on AM 360, if you have a question, press 1 so that you can be brought into the host queue and we can get your questions answered. And if you are watching us on either Facebook or YouTube, you can put a question in the comment section, and we'll see if we have some time to get your questions answered. And so along the lines, while we're, oh, actually, I do have a caller. So caller, I'm sorry. I got a couple of messages coming in on my end. Okay, caller 7426, press 1 so that you can be brought into the host queue.
Yeah, assalamu alaikum. It's Brother Muhammad from the Ummah, by the way of Hinesville, Georgia. Consistency and to see parental education that our children, and when put in its proper context, they begin to understand naturally that it is the best thing for them. So when they compare how we live, what we teach them is the best thing for them, it makes it a whole lot easier for them so that when distraction approaches them, they can see and we can educate them in how it might look good, but it's going to bring a type of result that is going to hurt you in what you really have seen from your home life. It's beneficial. There's love here. There's many things that we teach them about. The kids will see those things, and they won't go near the far, God willing, behind the fact that they have a model example that they can trust, especially maybe once or twice in their development, they might, be distracted and they find out that what we've been showing them all their life, it's true. That if you play with fire, you get burned. And it's not worth it because they have lived in an environment that supports what you're telling them or what the parent is telling them. So I think live in what you say out of your mouth and put it in deeds and actions, a nice model of it, a nice environment that supports it so that when distractions come, they might do like we did. Because the law tells us all of us were saved from the brick and the fire. Because distraction makes you go deep. Because we are learners, we are thinkers. And we know the creation is for us to observe and analyze and see the nature of it without distracting the nature of what we're studying. Like we see that, so when our children begin to understand the language that we're teaching them and that we live in it every day, inshallah, Allah will bless them like He does anyone who submits. And the comparison of truth and falsehood, or truth and artificial, they'll begin to like what is real. Everybody's searching for what is real right now. Our whole goal is to try to find out the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth that the prophets of God have said before us, and it was Prophet Muhammad was commissioned to do his validation of the same thing, but with a warning that this will be the final opportunity for our children to really sit down and get the whole truth. 90 seconds. And let them observe those who don't. And we can illustrate some things to them. That's education. Let a child or a new mind or a fresh mind see the results of what you tell them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you.
Go ahead. Make them think, at least they know that they won't do it again, most likely.
Right. Yeah. And we thank you for sharing that with us. Leading by example is so very important. And actually we're running out of time on our AM 360, but we can absolutely continue the conversation here on Facebook. So for those of you who joining us on AM 360, we thank you for being with us today on the Power of Educating Our Own with our guest Imam Kadir Abdul Sabur and his wife Sister Beverly. We want to continue to have these very fruitful conversations about education so that we create an environment and a culture around the importance of education. I don't think I'll be able to pull in any additional callers from AM 360, but I do have some questions that are coming in on the Facebook side, and I'm going to bring in the first of them. Let's see, AM 360 is conking out on us. So from one of our Facebook users, the question is, how important is using creation as a foundation for curriculum in our schools? Now, you talked a little bit about that earlier, just a bit, but how important is it?
So that's extremely important because Allah says, in the hayatu likami dhikri, in this is a sign for those to think, for those to reflect. So in what? In the whole creation is a sign. Everything in the creation is a sign for people who think, with no exception. Everything is a sign. Even take, for example, the political climate in America today. That's a sign for people who think. And if you think about it take a string, tie it on a tree, and put the other end, a rock on the other end, and you pull the rock up and let it swing back and forth like a pendulum. The rock will always try to slow down and slow down and slow down and reach a point of equilibrium at the bottom, the point of rest. That's the divine state, the median, that the whole Quran is bringing to the mizan, the balanced position. So when the pendulum is pulled one way to the left, you let it go, it swings way back to the right. When it goes to the right, goes too far to the right, you let it go, it swings way back. And that's what we see if we look at our system, political system. You see that when we go too far to the left, it goes way back to the right. When it goes too far to the right, it goes way back to the left. And it continues to do that because that's the creation. So Allah tells us in the Quran that the creation itself is a very important part of everything that we do. Like you take, for example, a spider's web. A spider's web, the Quran speaks about the house of the spider, the flimsy house of the spider. But you could think about that as being a form of entrapment, because what happens when we have our students and our youngsters get entrapped in an education system that doesn't serve them, it doesn't encourage their critical thinking skills, they're trapped. So they can't make intelligent decisions. They do whatever they've been taught to mimic or imitate. They don't think for themselves. So education could be a form of. Now there's a sign from the spider's web. You see, so the whole creation is like that. The mighty oak tree, it starts from just a single acorn about the size of a penny and grows into a tree that's maybe 50 or 100 feet tall and can stand all kinds of storm and turmoil and rainstorms and people carving their initials in, and it continues to stand. But it started from just a little simple little acorn. So when it first broke the ground, it was real susceptible to anything. Wind, get kicked over, step on it, it's dead. But it grows to a strength, and that's the way people are. People have to be the same thing. You take their roots from the roots down in the earth, and it grows, it reaches towards the sky. You take from the material world, earth, and reach toward the spiritual world, the sky. So everything in creation is a sign. So yes, it's absolutely important to understand the creation in order to to help our children, and all in the Quran. The last thing I say on that is that mathematics mathematics is Allah's gift to humanity for understanding his creation. You can't understand the creation unless you understand the mathematics of it.
Absolutely, absolutely, and so we actually still have AM 360 with us. I do have another caller 3275. If you press 1, you can come in the queue, and we'll we'll allow you to ask your question. And for those of you who are on AM 360, as that begins to close out, if you want to join us on New Freedom Network on YouTube, that's a way for you to see us visually. We just have a few questions left, and then we'll be closing out the program. But caller 3275, if you'd like to ask a question, please press 1 so that we can bring you into the queue. And so while we're waiting for that, because I don't know if they're being brought in at the moment, but okay, so we're maybe not on the AM 360, but I do have. Oh, I hear you. Go ahead. We can hear you. You can ask your question.
Oh yes, it's enough.
Yes.
But I got a question to Dr. Subriel is like to yes, how can we make donations to the school?
Oh, okay. So they're asking how they can make donations to the school. And so are you talking about New Africa Ummah? Are you talking about the Claire Muhammad Schools Network? And you'll have to turn your volume down on your device because we hear the feedback. Caller, are you still there?
Well, I guess the school that's on the online school. I would say. Yes.
Oh, okay. So they want to know how they can make
The online school that this is Mr. Journal.
Got you. Wants to make they want the caller wants to know how they can make a donation to New Africa Uma Online. Thank you,
The answer
caller.
to that is that just go to the website, go to our website, newafricanuma.net, newafricanuma.net, and then at the very top you'll see a drop down button, and you click on the donate button, and it'll take you right to a page where you can donate. And it's recurring. You can just make a one-time donation, or you can make a recurring donation, like $5 a month or something like that. Something that doesn't hurt you, but it helps the school. $5 a month. I mean, you wouldn't even miss $5 a month, but it would help the school. So if you imagine 1,000 people donating $5 a month, it makes a difference. So just go to the website, newafricanuma.net, and then click on the donate button. The donation button drops down, window opens, and you can make a one-time donation, or you can make it a recurring donation. Every month you can donate $5 a month, or whatever is easy for you.
Thank you so much for
Thank
that.
you. You're putting it in the screen. That's great.
Yeah, I was gonna say at the bottom of the screen you see the web address to New Africa Uma Online. We have a few comments I'm gonna bring up. When we speak on our schools, actually this one is a question. I was going to bring up a comment, but we'll go with this question. When we speak on our schools and curriculum, should we share the same epistemological philosophy and pedagogy? That's a deep one. I don't even know if we'll get all the way into that one tonight. We may have to address that on another show, but Imam Kadir, feel free if you'd like to approach that one this evening.
Okay, see, the thing is that we find that those of us who've been in the academic arena for a while, we tend to use terms that are significant. They have significant meaning and undercurrent, and sometimes positive, sometimes negative. So what we have to do is think about it a little differently. So Imam Muhammad said, go in the Quran, go into a book with nothing but the Quran, and go into a room with the Quran and a dictionary and come up with a curriculum. What that means is that I would understand that to mean what you do is you don't try to make your school fit the terminology of somebody else. What you do is you go into your school with the foundation of your school, which is the Quran, and then everything else comes out of that. So you don't have to use terms like epistemology or any of those ontological terms, because they're not really meaningful. What you're trying to do is you're trying to instill the spirit of the Quran into the hearts and the souls of first the teachers, then the students and their families. And you do that when the teacher has a thorough understanding of the Quran. And he or she can only do that when they really put the Quran in their own life and it manifests in their interaction with others.
Yeah, and that's what our earlier caller was talking about. You know, when you're living it yourself, when you're implementing the Quran yourself, it's easier to then impart that to your students and into the culture of the school that you're connected with. And so that just lifts that point back up. I had a couple of comments here. One, so we have Sister Bina joining us from North Carolina. We were talking about reaching the children, and she says, I really got a chance to experience how important being kind and patient with the children is toward keeping the children interested and exciting about what's being taught. And so, yeah, that's important. Imam Kadir talks about taking those distractions away. Well, kindness and patience go a long way as well with being able to reach them. We do have a viewer on Facebook asking how someone can enroll in the online school. So we did share the website at the bottom of the screen, and we'll bring that back up. But is there anything else you wanted to share as it related to enrollment?
It's just they can just go to the website, and then there's a online application that they can enroll. And it's really, we're really doing a lot with homeschools, or if a parent has a student in another school situation, either homeschool or whatever, they can enroll for one class or they can enroll for the whole program. And right now it's a middle school program, and we think of it as like a program that takes the youngster from elementary school thinking and put them into a high school frame of reference, high school thinking. So they learn all the basic things, that the academics that you need, but also they learn about bringing the Quran into their life and into all aspects of their learning environment. So the answer to that question is that you'll find everything you need online. And our principal is Sister Michelle Sakael, and her contact information is also given on the website.
Excellent. So for those who are interested in the online school, the website is scrolling at the bottom. Oh, well, it's positioned at the bottom of the screen. For those of you who are listening to us on AM 360, that website is www.newafricaumma.net. That's new, N-E-W, Africa. Oops, excuse me. What is it? Did we get it right? African. Oh, yes. Thank you. Thank you for that correction.
Yes.
It's www.newafricanumma.net. And so we'll get that correction on the screen so that everyone can see that. New African, we're going to highlight it. There you go. Newafricanumma.net. And so if you're interested in enrolling a student, or you're interested in making a donation, that is the website that you will go to, and you'll be prompted on the website to fill out the application. I want to thank Imam Kadir and Sister Beverly so much for being with me this evening. I had to steer the ship without my partners who are traveling this evening, Dr. Patricia and Madam Q, Sister Quran. We asked Allah to grant them traveling mercies, but I got a chance to be with some real pioneers, right? Those who have impacted education in this community in a very significant way, and they have not left their post. They are still making those impacts. Earlier, when we started the show, Imam Kadir talked about the fact that there was some good works happening in the Clan Muhammad Schools network that is to come, and they are for sure instrumental in making that happen. So I want to thank you all for being with me this evening. If you have any last words, here is your opportunity for that before we close out the show.
Sister Beverly?
You go ahead.
Well, we thank you so much for inviting us to be a part of your show, and we pray that Allah bless your efforts with much success. It's very needed. People who look at our community from afar, they don't see the kind of cohesive connectedness that we need to garner support. So we have to pull that from within. We have to join together, see the value in what we're doing, and support what we're doing. And the CMS networks right now is the most focused entity that I see on a rather for our school, for our school network, that are actually doing something constructive. So we wish you that Allah bless you all with much success.
I mean, Sister Beverly, do you want to add something? I'm not going to let you off the hook.
My gosh. Well, may Allah continue to bless you all. And you'll see that you'll get people around you will get excited, and they'll get other people excited. And just keep the excitement going. And Allah will bless you, bless us with the schools that we need, and the schools that we want, and the children will be proud of them, and we'll be proud of the children. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. So may Allah
Absolutely.
continue to bless you.
Amen. Amen. And so I just want you all to know that you keep us excited. Your story keeps us fueled to keep pushing, to make you, know that your efforts were not in vain, and that the great things that you have done are stair steps to the awesome things that we will continue to do. And so again, I thank you for being with us. This has been the power of educating your own. We will be here every Sunday at 7 p.m. You can find us on Facebook and YouTube at New Freedom Network. You can also find us on Facebook at New Freedom Exchange Show. And we'll be on AM 360. So we're trying this simulcast thing, and hopefully we'll perfect it. But I think it went pretty well today. We've had some people joining us on the Blog Talk Radio, as well as those who see us on social media. We're at show number 2, and we're excited. This is a show produced by the Clara Muhammad Schools Network, which was established in 2020. It's a collaboration of Clara Muhammad schools around the country and in Bermuda, and we are working to establish sustainable quality education in our communities for our children and those in our communities. And until next week, assalamu alaikum.
Sister Clara Muhammad, a black Muslim woman from Macon, Georgia, was an extraordinary leader and pioneer. Her contributions, especially in the development of Islamic education in America, paved the way for thousands of Muslim families to take ownership of their children's future, starting at a time when homeschooling was illegal in the United States. She eventually established a network of schools that was later named Sister Clara Muhammad Schools in her honor by her late son, Imam Warith Din Muhammad, rahimahullah. Sister Clara Muhammad helped establish the important role women had in early Muslim American history and was an inspiration to future generations of leaders. Without her, there would not have been a nation of Islam, or the unique Sunni Muslim community that evolved from it, one that was acutely aware of the concerns and aspirations of women. May Allah have mercy on Sister Clara Muhammad.